nervous thing.
Mr. Mento, you may begin the meeting.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the August 3rd special meeting of the Hammonton Board of Education. I'll read the open public statement. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend any meetings of public bodies at which their interest may be discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of this act, the Hammonton Board of Education has caused electric notice of this meeting by having the date, time, purpose to be posted on the Hammonton School District website, emailed to the Hammonton Gazette, and posted on authorized premises. Roll call, please.
Mr. Attanasi.
Here.
Mrs. Bernardo.
Here.
Mrs. Burns.
Here.
Mrs. Fallon.
Here.
Mr. Lyons.
Here.
Mr. Pangia.
He's here.
He was there. We'll give him a couple
No,
minutes.
he's here. I had him.
Mr. Pangia.
Yeah, I'm here. Present.
Thank you. Mrs. Polito. Absent. Mr. Palea.
Here.
Mr. Scipione.
Here.
Mr. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Mento.
Here. Let us now rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Again, good evening, everyone. Good evening, board members. We're going to go into the first public comment now. We tried to do this a little bit differently than last week. And, from what I understand, there was a little bit of concern from people in the public who had wished to make a statement or, ask a question of the board last week. And, I understand that everyone has so many questions and there's so much uncertainty and we all have a lot of concern about, the welfare of our teachers and students. So in order to accommodate the public a little bit better, one, we started the meeting at a better time. And number two, we put out our email for anyone to send questions or even a statement. They can provide that to our Assistant Superintendent, Tammy Leonard, and she'll then read those into the record. We'll do our best to answer what questions we can. As you know, we can go over a million different what ifs and very specific questions. We can only work off what the guidelines we've been given to from the state and from the Atlantic County Department of Health. But as we get closer and to the school year, we will have, better answers, more refined for specific situations. And tomorrow, you would look for on the website, part of our meeting tonight, really the most important reason for our meeting will be resolution number 3, when we approve our reopening plan. And what goes along with the reopening plan, along with the committee meetings and the community outreach, will be a video by our superintendent, Robin Kieko. And all of you will be able to view that tomorrow on the Hammonton webpage. And hopefully that'll answer some of the more specific questions. And again, as we go on, our phones are always open and we're gonna do the best we possibly can to keep an open dialogue with our community. As you know, the governor made some sudden changes today. We're not exactly sure how that will impact our reopening plan. Now that he's calling for less than 25 people in an area and mandatory masks all day for children, it kind of shows that the direction we were going was the right direction with the policy that we were specifically putting forward as a board, that all our students would be wearing masks. So with that now, I will go to Miss Tammy Leonard, I believe, who will be reading in some statements or questions. And if we could, maybe group them up into statements and questions, and we can take them all head on.
Okay, the first question is from Matt Johnson, 371 Valley Avenue, Hammonton, New Jersey. He says, hello, I am wondering what the plan is regarding substitute teachers in the Hammonton schools this year. Do you expect more to be needed due to the pandemic, and how do you plan on handling the situation as a whole regarding them? Thanks.
Ms. Kieko.
Basically, we understand that there is going to be a shortage of staff. I mean, that's across the state. Every district in the state is dealing with this. Our biggest concern is having substitutes and sharing them amongst other districts. So we need to kind of worry about and consider what are the cost and benefits of having a substitute that maybe works 2 or 3 days in our district, then maybe works 2 or 3 days in Galloway, and then 2 or 3 days in maybe Atlantic City. That's a problem in terms of keeping our cohorts together. So, yes, we do realize that there's going to be a need for additional staff members. It's just trying to balance the health related to that, and also being able to find certified substitutes that could actually teach, the specified some of the specified areas that we have. For example, algebra or calculus or physics or something like that. So there's a lot of things that go into deciding about substitutes, and we're taking that as we can. And again, we have 4 weeks before school opens, and we hope to have additional information prior to school opening for that.
Thank you, Ms. Kieko. Ms. Leonard, with the second question, please. And for formality, this is the first public comment. Anyone wishing to be heard, now is your first of 2 opportunities to come before the board, either via email or calling in. Ms. Leonard, our second question, please.
This question is from Tracy Angelosi at 425 West Orchard Street. She asks, how often will staff and student bathrooms be cleaned and monitored throughout the day? Will there be ventilation in the bathrooms to prevent stagnant chemicals? Thank you.
Mrs. Prettyman, did you want to address that since we've met with our facilities people?
Certainly. Our director of facilities and the superintendent and I met last week. We discussed the cleaning protocols. Custodians will be rotating through the district all day long, monitoring and cleaning and disinfecting all of the high touch areas. We don't feel that any of the products that we use are of a high odor, so it's all low odor. As everyone knows, we're not allowed to use Clorox or bleach. They are some of the higher odor products. Most of what we have is hydrogen peroxide based, safe as far as, contact with it, and low odor.
Thank you. Ms. Leonard, next question, please.
This is from Andrea Streitfeld at 317 South 3rd Street in Hammonton. She says, how does the district plan to accommodate staff members with K-12 children? Are you aware that if you do not accommodate these staff members, they can take family leave for the days students are not in school? And if that happens, they will not be working on those days. A follow-up question to this one is about getting substitutes for those staff members who become sick. When my husband was sick this past school year, I needed to take a marking period off to care for him. My substitute lasted 2 days before she quit. I suppose it was fortunate for the district that he passed away because I was asked to return to work earlier than planned. If he were still living, I would not have been able to return and there would have been no substitute. How would you be able to get substitutes to keep in-person learning going? And what happens when an AP teacher takes family leave or becomes sick and there is no one qualified to teach his or her class?
Before I turn it over to Ms. Giecko, obviously we've touched upon the substitute teacher issue and we're working on that. Obviously in the lower levels, it's a little more straightforward than the specialized teachers we would need in the high school. And we'll continue to do the best job we can with bringing in people. As far as the family leave and our teachers, obviously, you can find an excuse to not do anything in this day and age. You can get a lawyer, you could sue for anything. You can put up a stink not to go to work and do whatever you want. But the truth be told, this board has an expectation. We have an expectation that our teachers and our faculty are going to come to work every day. They're going to come to work with pride and do the best they can to educate our students. I understand that this will be a difficult time for them working with their children in childcare, but the reality is that's what everyone is dealing with right now. And some of those people in the lower incomes, as you know, we are a 40% poverty level, desperately need the daycare and don't have the option of family leave. So, technicalities are technicalities and every person has to do what they have to do. But it is our hope and opinion that the teachers and everyone is going to come to work and do the best job they can to educate the kids who desperately need to come to school after some 9 months of furlough. That's all I have to say about that. Next question.
This is from Liz Lamont, who lives at 38 Martyr Avenue in Hammonton. My question is regarding the proposed Wednesday deep cleaning day. I understand from a Hammonton staff member that they, teachers and staff, are going to be required to teach remotely from the school buildings. I would like to ask the board 2 questions regarding this. I know many Hammonton district teachers that are also parents of school-aged children. Childcare is not readily available for many people. Will you be making accommodations for the teachers of school-aged children to work remotely from home on Wednesdays? And second, how much deep cleaning is getting done if teachers and staff are in their classrooms? If the custodial staff ask them to leave their rooms, how can they adequately provide remote instruction?
Okay, thank you. Before we go, Ms. Prettyman, I can address some of those issues very quickly. I know there has been much to do with the Wednesday deep cleaning, but the reality is we're going to be cleaning this school every single night. Wednesday, we're going to be cleaning without students in the room, so it gives us a little more flexibility. And the truth be told, working in coordinates with the deep clean, we have our teachers in here making preparations for virtual lessons because there might come a time when we are going to go all virtual. So that is also a day of training and development for our staff, along with additional cleaning the way we might not be able to do during the day. Ms. Prettyman or Ms. Gecko, you can jump in or we can go to the next question.
I think you answered that very well, Mr. Minto. Like you said, one of the points that we want to get across is the custodial staff will be cleaning and disinfecting every single day, Monday through Friday. Wednesdays will provide an opportunity to, probably do some areas a little bit better, hallways where you won't have students passing, bathrooms where you won't have students in bathrooms, the water fountains that, aren't being used. They'll be able to cover a lot of the different areas, but rest assured that the building will be cleaned and sanitized every single night, in addition to the day custodian going around and doing all of the high touch areas.
Thank you,
And-
Ms. Prettyman.
And in reference to staff expectations, we will be sending out a lot more and direct to our expectations for staff, so that all those types of things like the Wednesday requirements will be addressed as we get ready for the school year, probably close to the end of this week, beginning of next week.
Thank you. Would you be kind enough, Mrs. Bernardo, to hit mute on your side there? We're catching a lot of rustle from your phone and it's often lighting up. And I'm having a hard time hearing. If you could, thank
There's
you.
nothing going on here, though.
I know, but I think you have a very sensitive microphone. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Ms. Leonard, next question, please.
Okay, this is from Lauren Wilson at 215 Jamestown Boulevard, Hammonton. She has a number of questions here. Number 1, today Governor Murphy announced reduced indoor capacity in a room to 25% capacity or 25 people max. As of today, indoor dining at 25% is still prohibited in the state of New Jersey. Please explain how the limitations and capacity guidelines apply to a school cafeteria settings and what safety measures will be put in place to protect students and staff members covering lunch duty. How does today's reduction in indoor capacity impact your reopening plan? Number
Okay.
2.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Do you want
That's
to?
a very multi-point question. No, please read them all, then we'll
Okay.
address them at once.
All right. Several places of employment are bringing their staff back in staggered shifts, i.e. A week and B week staff. This way, if an employee in the A week group tests positive, only those individuals will need to quarantine. Currently, you're only dividing students into 2 cohorts and not employees. What happens when a student or staff member tests positive? Who will be instructed to quarantine? If an outbreak occurs and one school closes down, would the entire district follow, or would the closure be limited to the one school? Number 3, deep cleaning Wednesdays. My understanding is that you are opting to bring in 100% of your staff on a day that's dedicated to deep cleaning. That defeats the purpose of a true deep cleaning process. My understanding is the teachers would be expected to work on their plans and virtual lessons on that day, which could easily be done at home. The state of New Jersey is still in stage 2 of reopening, which very clearly states that any work that could be done remotely should be done remotely. This would allow a true deep cleaning of the school to be achieved and provide staff the ability to accomplish their work in a safe environment. Would you consider revising this and allowing the teachers and staff to work from home on Wednesdays to allow for a true deep cleaning of the school environment and remain in compliance with the state of New Jersey's Phase 2 guidelines. And one more. What is the district's plan to accommodate any and all staff members requesting virtual teaching accommodations? How will those teachers be assured their accommodation requests will be met? Equally important, how are you creating an environment where non-tenured teachers can truthfully and safely request accommodations without the fear of retaliation? I am concerned that if the district is not able to accommodate all initial requests, there will be a significant increase in early retirements and staff members filing for leave through the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which provides each staff member with up to 12 weeks of paid leave through December 31st. If you do not accommodate staff requests for virtual teaching accommodations, what is your plan to recruit long-term substitute teachers to cover educators who file for leave through the Families First Coronavirus Response Act? How will long-term substitute coverage work for courses that require a specific certification, such as an advanced placement course? Thank you
Okay,
for your time.
thank you. Okay, I'll give it to the professionals. But first, yes, the main point that Miss Wilson, I believe, hit in the beginning was the governor just announced today. So obviously the board, our professionals need a little more time to digest exactly what this means going forward. You know, we're still getting updates every day as far as guidance from the state and the county. So, you know, we will get back to you with that. But obviously our plans are for separation in the cafeteria, and I'm sure our professionals can go into that. Again, I just want to emphasize another thing. I understand the concern for teachers, and you know, you have to understand, we're elected here by the citizens of Hammonton, the 14,000 citizens. And believe me, I care for, no one has been more willing to work with through negotiations, be it the last 4 contracts. I spearheaded myself here, working with our staff. But again, we have 350, 400 people who work here in the district. We have 14,000 residents. That's who we have to look at. And, you know, again, I hope that teachers realize they are essential workers. You know, there was a time 2 years ago, every teacher would have fought tooth and nail to be called essential. And now it's time to step up and be essential and raise our children and do what we have to do in the classroom. And I don't mean, when I say raise, I mean educate. But, you know, sometimes it goes hand in hand with children being together and, you know, just being that moral and educational, you know, leader that they need outside of the home. You know, so our expectation is once again for our teachers to come to work every day. Ms. Kieko,
Yeah, I just
Freeman,
want to,
we can
I think these are kind of
continue.
all following the same theme here. And what, you know, everyone needs to understand is that, you know, all districts were charged with developing a reopening plan. And that reopening plan had to include in-person as well as, again, they added that later, all remote instruction. So we're just doing the best that we can with the limited staff that we have, with the limited funding that we have available to put a plan together that meets the requirements for the state of New Jersey. This is not my requirements. This is the state, and this is not the Board of Education's requirements. This is the state of New Jersey's requirements. So the plans that we are putting in place are trying to fit with that particular guideline that we were given. And again, we also have to be able to implement all the safety requirements, provide transportation, and provide accommodations to students and staff that have medical concerns. So there's a lot of things that go into this. And you know, maybe, I don't think, like I said, I don't believe that the public think that this is our fault. I understand that they know that the state of New Jersey is expecting this of us, but that's where our hands are tied. We have to come up with something. We cannot say we are doing 100% remote. That's not an option for our district at this point. That's something that has to come higher up, and we'll be prepared, whatever that happens to be.
Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, if you were to poll the residents, as you can see in our survey, 80% of our parents want their children to come back to school. They were only offered a 2-day choice, but if we would have given them a 5-day choice, which is we're not able to, I feel very confident we would have the same amount of people, because that's what needs to happen now. Again, we're going to do it in a smart way. We're going to follow the guidelines. We're going to make sure we're as safe as possible. But at the same time, we need to get moving a little bit here. We need to go back to school. Next question.
All right, this is from Nick Gobler at 220 Lakeview Drive in Hammonton. He says, I'm sure the school is going to take every precaution to keep the students and teachers from contracting the virus. My biggest concern is what happens when a student or staff member tests positive for the virus, and what kind of contact tracing procedures should we expect? Thank you for taking my question.
Again, we're dependent upon the Atlantic County Health Department, and it's our hope they will give us good guidance on tracing. And if it were like the farm or where they have worked with other entities, they provide the community tracers. So again, we're going to be dependent upon what the Department of Health tells us, and that's how we're going to move forward. Next question.
This is from Greg Capaccio. He says, my biggest concerns as to what we know at this point are, one, on Wednesdays, where will us without rooms be able to record lessons and have our 20-minute check-ins? It is difficult enough to find a place to call a parent without background noise, let alone have an online class. Who will be doing the temperature checks as they come into school? Mr. Scipione stated in a Facebook post that kids with fevers will be put in a separate room. Who draws the short straw to be the sacrificial lamb for that duty? And finally, if some teachers are compromised, will they be allowed to do remote only? Who then will be assigned to teach their classes? Many of us may be given classes we haven't taught, or will we get notice about that to have more time to prepare, especially if it's a new subject altogether?
Ms. Kieka, you can address the concerns of one of our teachers.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we kind of answered some of those questions before. And again, I said there'll be more directions provided to the staff later this week, so that they have a better understanding of what the expectations are, and specifically what we'll be doing that last week in August, first week of September for the professional development. As far as temperature checks are going, now the recommendation is not to do temperature checks within the school and to do that at home, and to advise parents to do that, because it's not a reliable symptom for just COVID, and it can cause more issues, as this person stated, than not. It kind of draws attention to somebody maybe inappropriately, and it's only as good as the thermometers that we have. So that's not a recommendation right now to do temperature checks, but that's one of the screenings we can do if we are questioning someone with other symptoms. So that will probably be handled more or less in the nurse's office than anyplace else.
Correct. And again, we will be conducting screening. But again, I can't emphasize this, and I don't want to be harsh when I say this. It starts in the home. You need to monitor your child. You need to monitor the situation of your family. If someone is ill, even if they typically have allergies that time of year, or, you were next to someone who had the flu, or, you need to keep your child home. We need, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We need everyone to chip in from the community to do what's best for our kids and keep them safe. Next question.
This is from Jonathan and Stacy Gerst at 332 Central Avenue in Hammonton. They say, on the behalf of my family, thank you for your efforts in planning to forge ahead during this time. With a spouse and 2 children in the district, can you explain what protocols will be in place to keep students protected during lunchtime when students will have masks off? Thank you for your commitment to our community and our children.
Okay, that's the second specific question we've had now on lunch. And I know we do have a plan put in. If you want to touch on the spacing and how many people at the table, and also how we'll be utilizing potentially the outside, Ms. Gecko.
Yes, we're keeping the 6 feet of separation within the lunchroom. So we have staggered our lunch periods. I know in the elementary classrooms, or the elementary cafeteria at West, they're actually using tables or desks instead of the tables to give more separation. Again, we're staggering them. We're going to provide other additional spots for them to go in, so we can keep the 6 feet of separation between the students that are sitting at the table. So that's what the recommendations were from the CDC, and that's what we are going to be implementing.
Thank you. Next question.
This is from Heather Capuccio at 700 Wayne Avenue in Hammonton. My question is regarding virtual learning. When we say virtual, will that be parent-led or teacher-led? Thank you.
Ms. Gecko.
That will be teacher-led. We have a lot of things. Those are the changes that are going to be made with this particular plan that we have now compared to what we did at the end of last year. So these are definitely pre-recorded instructional videos that the teachers are making. They're interactive. There's going to be assignments associated with all the videos. There's also going to be time during the day when they're going to be checking in with live meetings. So it's going to be definitely a scheduled instructional program for all students.
Yes. And again, just to reiterate what we did at our last special meeting, and again, maybe I should have done a better job explaining it, but it was 12 o'clock on a work day. We did move back our start date till the Tuesday after Labor Day. This will enable us to put all our professional development days that were either before school or during the month of October in before our teachers and our students return. This way, they're going to have all the training. Our expectation is a much, much better product than what we had last year as far as virtual learning. I mean, in the beginning, we were told to make photocopies for 2 weeks. Then they said, no, make copies for 4 weeks. Then they said, you're not coming back, go virtual. So at least now we have a handle on what we have to do to put out a virtual product. And again, we are a tech district. It is now time for us to earn our spurs. And I have the utmost confidence in our teachers and administrators that we're going to put out a superior product for virtual learning. Next question.
All right, this is from Deanna Njemi. She says, I apologize if I missed this. What will the schedule be for kindergarten, and will the students be required to log on remotely on the days they are not in school? Thank you.
Ms. Giecko?
And again, that's going to be in the presentation, the video, but yes, there'll be scheduled time for them to check in. And if parents are working and that's not going to work for them, in other words, they have different schedules, that's something they can work out with the teacher. But yes, there are going to be scheduled times and they will have to log in at certain times, and we're making the login very easy for our younger students. So that's something that's going to be improved as well.
Thank you. Next question.
That's the last question I have at the moment.
Okay, this is the conclusion of the first public comment. This is the first of 2 sessions for the public wishing to be heard to come before the board. We will now move into the business and the more business end of our meeting, finance. Finance item number 1, I will read the resolution. Resolved that the Hammonton Board of Education approve the following adjustments to the 2021 adopted budget due to the net reduction in state aid. As we have said many times in the past, and I'm sure our business administrator will be able to elaborate much better than I can, we lost some $1.7 million in aid from the state. That was aid, to sort of speak, to offset the $10 million they've been shorting us every year for the last decade, working towards adequacy, I believe. So with the situation, we lost that 1.7 million. As you know, we do have a very conservative board, and there was a time here where we were in the red, but over the last decade, we've turned a deficit into a very, very strong surplus. And some of the monies we were very fortunate enough to receive was additional funding late in 2017. Because we had already struck our budget, we had that money rolling along. It was my hope and other members' hope to make some upgrades to our facilities with that, going out to bid for turf fields and potentially a athletic field for the girls. Seeing we're not playing sports and seeing where we are and the realization of what's going on, the board collectively has decided to utilize that money as a one-time stopgap to correct this budget. But what people have to understand, this is a very, very slippery slope, and this is a very scary thing what we're doing tonight. Essentially, we are taking a one-time revenue, a revenue that we cannot make up again, to offset a deficit in a budget. So without help from the government, which I've always been a glass half full type of person, I truly believe in my heart that our representatives in Washington will do the right thing and support the states and local municipalities, and particularly the school districts. And with that, we'll get some extra money maybe next year. But if we do not find, this 1.7 million and an additional 1.7 million, because, simple math, simple arithmetic, if you're 1.7 million short this year and you use it out of surplus, well, that puts you at a 3.4 deficit next year because you no longer have that surplus to use either. So that's what we're doing with that. You'll also see, in addition to our budget of $130,854 from school choice aid, appropriations for equipment, a net loss of $193,262, and also construction services, which is all part of this, of $1,400,000. Miss Prettyman, would you care to speak to the public prior to us? Or Or go ahead, then we'll take. a
Now,
vote.
Mr. Mento, I think you explained that very well. We are directed by the state to modify our budget for this net reduction in state aid that equals approximately $1.6 million. And as you said, we're taking it out of surplus. We're reducing that construction account and the related equipment in order to make up that loss for this year. Very hopeful that things will improve, that the state of New Jersey will be a recipient from the federal government of some funds, much needed funds, and that maybe at some point we will be made whole. But that would be it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion for item number 1, please?
Motion.
Mr. Antonassi, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Burns. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Attanassi,
Yes.
Mrs. Bernardo,
Yes.
Mrs. Burns,
Yes.
Mrs. Fallon,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Pangia,
Yes.
Mr. Palea,
Yes.
Mr. Shipion,
Yes.
Mr. Mento.
Yes, motion carries. We'll now take personnel item number 2, standalone, addressing a substitute. Is there a motion, please?
Motion.
Mrs. Fallon, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Burns. Discussion, please. Roll call.
Mr. Attanassi,
Yes.
Mrs. Bernardo, microphone,
If I can read lips, it says yes.
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
I'll
Mrs.
get
Burns,
it sooner or later.
thank you. Mrs. Burns,
Yes.
Mrs. Fallon,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Pangia,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Palea,
Yes.
Mr. Shipion,
Yes.
Mr. Mento.
Yes, motion carries. We'll now take programs miscellaneous items 3 through 7. I will read number 3 into the record. Again, this is the reason why we had this special meeting this evening. As you know, last week was particularly pertaining to the lease of the old St. Joe building. We wanted to do our diligence to get it out there again, not to take dollars out of the classroom for our students. Item number 3, resolve that the Hammonton Board of Education approve submission of the 2021 school reopening plan to the Executive County Superintendent. Item number 4, resolve that the Hammonton Board of Education approve submission of the amendment to the ESSA FY fiscal year 20 application to reallocate funds. Number 5, resolve that the Hammonton Board of Education ratify submission of the CARES Act ESSAR Fund Digital Divide Grant application. And item 6, resolve that the Hammonton Board of Education approve the following policies for first reading. You'll see there are 3 here on the agenda. And item number 7, resolve that the Hammonton Board of Education approve an application and resolution for dual use of the educational space for the 2019-20 school year. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Mrs. Bernardo, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Antonassi. Discussion?
Mr. Mento, I believe that item number 7 should be the 2021 school year,
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
if everyone agrees.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And who seconded that motion, please?
Would you amend your motions in your second, please? To
So moved.
reflect the change to 2020,
Reflect
2021?
the change for the year, calendar year 2021.
You?
Thank you very kindly.
And who was the second?
I think it was Mr. Antonassi.
Seconded by Mr. Antonassi.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Attanassi,
Yes.
Mrs. Bernardo,
Yes.
Mrs. Burns, Mrs. Fallon, Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Pangia,
Yes.
thank you, Mr. Palea,
Yes.
Mr. Shipion,
Yes.
Mr. Mento.
Yes, Motion's carried. This is the second opportunity from anyone in the public wishing to be heard. Now is your opportunity. Ms. Leonard, do you have any questions for the board?
I do.
Go ahead.
Jason Michelini at 27 Mills Drive in Waterford asks, with the students being split into cohorts, how many students will be in a classroom? Number two, what classroom protocols are being put in place for student movement in the classroom as well as other areas within the school, spacing, cleaning, sanitizing, and working in small groups? Number three, will there be specific times in place that students will be expected to be online on virtual days? This may be difficult for some working parents and prefer to work with their child at a time that works with their schedule. And number four, will there be training for parents to be able to access some of the remote platforms?
Ms. Giecko, I can turn over the majority of those questions as as the thunder and lightning starts. I hope that's not an ominous
Oh, boy.
picture of what's to come. But I'll give you that. And the one thing I will say, and I'm sure, and I say this somewhat kiddingly, but I really do mean it, he was probably referring to much younger students. I know I speak for myself and parents of older students being in the middle school or high school. We absolutely are looking for a daily regimen of having our kids come sign in, go to homeroom, salute the flag, and then begin their day and have times to check in throughout the day, because, you know, this is not how the normal world is going to work. Eventually, there's going to be a time when you need to show up to work and you have your lunch and then you leave to go home from work. And that's what we're trying to instill in some of these older students. And Ms. Giecko, you can address the rest.
Yes, the class sizes are reduced to 50%, so anywhere from 12 to 14 students maximum in a classroom. So that's what we've been doing with the cohorts. In terms of information for parents on how to access everything, we did purchase a new program called ClassLink, which is a one-time sign-in. So once a student signs into their Chromebook, they have access to all of their applications. And again, we made that very easy for the younger students by just using a little card that they can put in front of the camera. So that will help them to access. We're going to develop videos for parents online so that you can see how to access Parent Portal, how to get into Google Classroom, how to set up Remind, and all the different types of programs that we're implementing so that you'll be more familiar as well. In terms of what time the students will be on it, Mr. Mentor did mention the older students, but for the younger students, the total remote students, we are expecting them to be online at certain times because they're assigned to a classroom teacher at certain times and they're going to need to be with that person. For those that are doing hybrid, there is going to be a little bit more flexibility on those remote days because they have assignments that are due at certain times. They'll have to watch the videos, and I'm sure that the younger grades will make accommodations for parents that want to be part of that. So it's kind of a difference between the younger versus the older students.
Thank you, Ms. Giecko. Ms. Leonard, next question, please.
This is from Kelly Donio at 509 Bellevue Avenue in Hammonton. She says, given that all of the students will have some version of online schooling in the fall, regardless of if they choose hybrid or 100% virtual, can you share some of the names of the programs that the staff will be using for online instruction? I'm not asking about the methods, Google Classroom, et cetera. I'm curious if you can share some of the programs for staff training and any instruction for the students. I realize this is new territory for teachers and parents, and I'm curious what new programs will be used this time that will be different from the spring. I appreciate everything the board, the staff, the teachers, and the administrators are doing to prepare for the school year.
Thank you. Ms. Giecko?
Yes, and that's all in the video that will be presented online. So all those informations, we have several programs we purchased. We have several programs that are being offered in terms of professional development for our staff. So all of that will be available on the video, and also it's going to be on a PowerPoint as well that'll have access for all parents and community members. So that will be posted within a day or so.
Again, and that video will be on our webpage, and we're going to put it out every
Oh,
day.
and it's also Channel 9 is going to broadcast it as well. So I'm very grateful that they offered to do that for us. And they mentioned that they would show it over several days. So that's another way that parents will be able to watch and understand what's going on.
Thank you. Next question, Ms. Leonard.
This is from Erin Husta at 308 South 2nd Street in Hammonton. She says, I know that you mentioned in an earlier meeting that parents would know what to expect a month before school starts. Does that mean the video being released? Will we know our kids' schedule that far in advance?
Basically, what they're going to know is which cohort. Those letters will be mailed at the end of this week, so everyone should have in their hands what they selected, whether it was or whether it was hybrid or whether it was remote instruction, what those expectations are. In terms of their actual class assignments, that will not be available yet, but they will know which days they will be coming to school and which days they will have remote instructions by the end of this week.
Thank you. Next question, Ms. Leonard.
All right, this is from Dina Injami at 101 Marlin Avenue in Hammonton. She says, I apologize for not asking this with my prior question. When will we be given the days the students will be attending, their schedule? My husband and I are both teachers in other districts and need to arrange daycare for our son going to kindergarten, which is difficult, still not knowing what days our son will be home learning remotely. Thanks again.
Great. Ms. Gecko.
Well, we just answered that. They're going to have that letter this week, so they'll know.
This week, we'll get that information out.
Yes.
Okay. Next question, Ms. Leonard.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no more questions, we're going to close the second portion of the public comment. And prior to adjournment, if any board members would care to give an update or say something to the public, we can go around the horn if you care to. I know this isn't a normal meeting with our committee reports, but I did feel bad last week how that was a somewhat short meeting, although the sole intention was to take care of the lease issues. And in order to have a closed session, by law, we need to open up as a board. And, because of sunshine laws and everything like that, we can't just meet as a whole and have a discussion. And even when we go into closed session, it is very specific topics that we can talk about, attorney-client, privilege and everything else I read about when we go into the executive session. But with that being said, if any other board members, just by a raise of hand, if you want to say something, now's your opportunity. If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn, please. Ms. Gecko.
Right. I just want to provide a little bit more information about the video. So the agenda that was this evening, they approved the resolution to approve the reopening plan to the county executive superintendent. The video of the plan will be available on the district website under a special icon located at the top of the page entitled Reopening Plan. Again, this video will be shown on Channel 9 at various times. Because we are unsure of what the fall may bring, we have spent the past 2 months developing a plan that can easily accommodate a hybrid model or, if necessary, 100% remote learning if conditions warrant. We must be prepared for every scenario. Parents will be receiving cohort letters at the end of this week. This will provide specific dates that your child will be attending in-person instruction if you selected the hybrid model on your registration survey, as well as information related to remote learning. Additional information related to class schedules will be sent at the end of
I'm
August.
sorry, Mrs. Bernardo, we hear your phone or something going off there. Could you mute yourself?
There isn't anything there. I don't know what to tell you. There isn't anything.
Thank you. Continue, Ms. Gecko.
Let's see. As well as information related to remote learning. So that'll all be sent at the end of this week. And again, additional information related to class schedules will be sent at the end of August in preparation for the first day for students on September 8th. We continue to try to do the best that we can to open our schools safely while providing educational programs that will meet the needs of our students. There are still many more questions than we have answers for and are awaiting further directions from the state. So I thank everyone for their patience, and the video with all the directions and information regarding our opening plan will be available on our district website. So please stay tuned.
Thank you, Ms. Gecko. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn, please. Unless you guys want to stay here all night.
So moved. Motion to
Mr.
adjourn.
Bernardo, is there a second, please?
No one?
Motion.
Mr. Galea, a second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you and good night, Hamilton. Stay tuned for the video update.